Hi guys. Hope everybody's having a good night tonight for the first week of January of 2024. Hope everybody's having a good time. I went out and did a bunch of videos today. I am tired today. It's one of them days where you work your tail off and you just, all you want to do is, can we take a nap? You know what I mean? It's one of those type days. And hopefully you're having a better day than me. Tiny Titan, hello. Good evening. Justin, good evening, sir. 2020, good evening. Keep all three, good evening and Happy New Year. Claymore Steel, good morning to you, sir. Got you. Restocked the pub. Bob, good evening. David, hello to New Zealand. Todd, hello, sir. Donald Gideon, good evening. Hiram, good evening. Kodak, hello. Aaron, good evening. Nathaniel, good evening and Happy New Year to everybody. Yeah, it's being eventful. I'll put it that way. We've had a cold snap come in here in Alabama, which was great. I love the cold. I'd rather work with the cold than anything else. I can find a way to get warm. It's hard to get cool. So, Robert, good evening to Florida. And so I ran around. I've done quite a few. This week, I'm doing a video every day, if y'all haven't figured out. We'll get back on the usual track next week, but I had just so many things I had to hit at one time. I decided to go ahead and do a little blitz and do it. And I got oodles and oodles of stuff coming up. I don't know if I posted this yet or not, but I'll go ahead and speak to it now. So if not, you'll know what's going on. I did all the time get requests from various people or companies or whatever want me to look at products, and I'm not wanting to be a gear review channel. You know, I do like products. I like to play with new stuff like everybody else, but at the same time, I got a good knife. I don't need another knife, and I got a this. I don't need a that. Well, I got thinking about it, and what I've done in the past is I've done some gear reviews, and then that gear gets rolled over to go to either somebody that needs it, or it goes into the stuff that I give away at my gathering. So I'm going to be doing some videos that way. I just got in a 1200 watt power station with a 200 watt charging solar charger panel that lays out behind it. I'm going to be testing that this week, and I'm in the process of doing it right now, and hopefully the video will be coming out next week for it. And I've got a use for that already. But I got other gear too that's supposed to be coming, and I'm going to use it and then pass it along as things say fit. But gives us all something new to play with and look at. Okay, let's see. Where was I? There we are. Lonnie, good evening to Western Pennsylvania. Jonathan Frisbee, hello, brother. Glad you made it. I understand, brother. Glad you made it. Oh, I bet, Claymore, I bet. You're in summer down there. That would be so odd to us up here. The idea that Christmas happens in the summer. That would just be left field to us, but I understand. James Singer, good evening to Columbia. Squib, good evening. Anthony, Happy New Year. Edward, Happy New Year. Yeah. That's just, you're sometime in the middle of January, that polar vortex loses its crap and starts oscillating around the planet. China has been getting it hammered since middle of December. I've been seeing reports of like 40 below, 50 below in sections of China. It's like they're in the northern Siberia. It's like they're in the Arctic. So that's where the cold slop has been staying thus far. Remember, a couple of years ago, we had a big old cone of cold air come all the way down into Texas and just sat there for days and days and days while Texas froze. You know, that's that kind of, well, it's over China right now. And usually in the middle of January is when that oscillation begins and it starts going around. So I predict we'll get some good cold weather. This is what we have to have. This is the weather pattern we have to have for us to get snow down here, because we have to have deep cold air. I mean, sudden cold air, and then Gulf moisture roll up and just get run over to turn to snow. It's the only way we get it. So hopefully this year we'll get some snow. Reinhardt, good evening. I can believe it down there in Australia, Claymore, to eat prawns and go to the beach. Yeah, it's a summer activity for y'all. But 112, good evening. Shane, good evening. Jeff, hello. Randy T, good evening. Mark, good evening. It was 107 Fahrenheit here or on Christmas Day. Yep. Well, we learned that back in school up here, that in the winter, the Earth is actually physically closer to the sun in our orbit, but we're tilted away. So we get winter. But you guys in Australia, you get a brutal summer because you're A, closer to the sun, and B, you're aimed straight at it. And this is a solar maximum year. So you're getting cooked down there. Y'all be able to hang a chicken out the window and it'd be done by lunch. Daryl, good evening. Gunsmith 45, good evening. Freedom Road Off Grid, good evening. Fran, good evening. Anthony Grimes, 28 degrees here in Ohio. Awesome. Dutch, hello to Germany. Daryl is chilly in Pennsylvania. I got you. And Planet Wisconsin. Hello there. Yeah, usually when it gets this in the very north, has a mild winter, and down here in the south we have a hard winter because just the way the currents change up. And I like it. I really do. I look forward to having snow. I have only camped in snow once, and that was up there at Dan Lutz's place. No, just snow on the ground. I want to camp in a snowstorm. And if we find out we got something coming in, I may grab the gear and run up the hill, and tell the wife, I'll see you when it's over, I've always wanted to do that. That's, the thing for me. Matt Smith, good evening. I hear you, Tiny Titan, good evening. And yeah, 50 there. You're actually warmer right now in Oregon than I am. I'm at 43 down here right now. Aaron, good evening. 22 in Michigan. Planet Wisconsin. It can get bitter cold up there. Miss C, good evening. And happy Thursday. Ebony Bushcraft, hello there. Fist bump. Diane, good evening. John Kennedy, good evening, brother. Ken, be safe out there in Wyoming. Cool, Claymore. Yeah, Mark, I love snow, but look where I'm at. It's such an event for us. And I realize, James Singer, good evening. I realize that you guys up north get sick of all the ice and snow. Well, that's how we get sick of the heat and humidity down here in the South. It's just like, God, just please let it be cool or cold, something other than heat for 8 months. And especially during our summer, after July, mid-July, you start getting where the humidity's so high you can literally feel it going in out of your lungs. And then suddenly it turns cool. It's just so awesome to us. But it's like you guys up there in the cold, when it finally spring breaks and everything warms up, that's like, wow, you want to run naked in the streets. That's how we feel whenever the summer breaks and we know we made it and it's going to get cooler, even for just a couple of months, but at least it'll be cooler. Yep, John Kennedy, I hear you. That lake is calling me as well. Bears in the house. No problem, brother. Glad you made it. Donald, get it? I would. When I went up there to Dan's and camped out at 17 degrees, I was in my hammock. The lowest I've been down is 6. And with my hot tent I have now, which is just a wall tent, yeah, I'll be happy. I'm sure that thing would hold up the snow, you know, says the guy that doesn't live in the snow. But I'm pretty sure I can make it hold up the snow. Edwin, I hear you. Hello, Raymond, and Happy New Year to Tennessee. Yes, Reinhardt. Yes, I did. What it is, there's sections, and I just moved the dampener further up. I found it was better that way. I put one section in on top of the stove, then I put the dampener in, so that on my wall it's right here instead of being way down at the bottom. And it drafts much better that way. I can control it better because you need that heat flow coming up the pipe and have a little bit of, for lack of a better term, pressure coming up. If you put the dampener too far, too close to the actual firebox, it becomes way too sensitive. Just to eat and the eat makes a difference. Moving it up, I can move it like a half inch so I could dial it in and trap more heat in there. Me and Pink sat in mine with just that little bitty, it's a little bitty tiny. It's like the size of a mailbox. And it warmed that little tent up just fine. I was toasty. And then when I did the 6 degrees the night before that, when it was going to be like 18, I believe, something like that, I carried lumped charcoal, which is just char. It's not the briquettes, but it's charred wood that's been charred like you make charcoal. And I would open the door and take a shovel full and throw it in, push everything to the back, close the door, and I'd run about 45 minutes to an hour. You'd watch this red band working its way up. And about the time it was almost the front, I'd open the door, shove everything to the back, and repack it. And it's just not a big enough box to have a long term burn. But in that little bitty tent, I sat there for 6 hours reading a book, and I was not wearing shirt sleeves, but I was not wearing my jacket or anything, and very comfortable. Kent Aldridge, I hear you. Yeah, Mark Burgess, it is. When we get to that summer type stuff, it just, you feel it going in and out of your lungs. I have had a lot of people that lived up north for years, and they'd fly down here to the south, going on that vacation to Florida or whatever, and get out of the plane and go, dear God. It's like altitude, but it ain't altitude, just the air's so thick. You just don't want to breathe it. Oh, yeah, Jonathan, be careful up there. Yeah, Claymore, that wood will swell even with that humidity and grip it. And I found I like my open L. In fact, I'm gonna be doing a video on a new open L mod here in a little bit. The one I used to carry in my pocket, if I got hot and sweaty, I couldn't open it. The wood would swell up and grip it, and you couldn't open that sucker unless you had pliers. And so that's one of the reasons I quit carrying it in my pocket. So I did find that if you would wax it and take or take clear fingernail polish and paint the wood on the inside, that would make a difference. And then up there where the actual friction of the blade is, put beeswax in there. Take a beeswax candle and drip it and rub it real good so it kind of goes into the wood, and that would help that a lot. But I just quit carrying mine in my pocket. It rides in my pack, but not my pocket. Daryl, yeah, running that small a stove in a small space, it is. It's an art form. Knowing exactly how to feed it to keep it running correctly, generate the heat, not overdo it or anything. I see a lot of guys you'll see on these channels. I'm not bad mouthing anybody, guys, but I see them, they fire this stove up and this pipe is glowing bright red. And they're like, look at all that heat. You're destroying your stove. That sucker's going to get hot. That seam's going to give out. That tube pipe, is it seamless or is it actually welded somewhere? And you're going to get it hot enough, that pipe's going to start warping and let go. And suddenly you got heat, you got smoke inside the tent. So too much heat. Freedom off the road. I got you. Yeah, there's supposed to be that big front coming through up there right now. John Latterman, Blackie, at the event in Kentucky, is there space to hammock camp? I do not know. I have never been to this place, and I've been invited to it. I will not. As I understand, I'm going to be indoors. It is supposed to be a big, huge expo, and that I'm indoors at a table. And I was told just get a hotel room. So I've got a hotel room. I'm not planning on camping. I'm gonna be there all day, every day. But I'm gonna go take a hot shower and get me some meals. But have not been there. It looks to be kind of like a big conference center slash fairground. I haven't looked it up any more than that, so I really can't answer you for that. Jason Hunt, who runs Campcraft, he may have more information than me. You may reach out to him or just go to their website and ask. Maybe they can fill you in on it. Yeah, Mark Burns, I hear you. Thank you very much, Bear. Briar Smoke. Okay. Jim Daniels. Okay. I will do that when I get off. I'll go see. If I haven't approved it within like a half hour of getting off of here tonight, send me another one. I'll be looking for it. Make sure it pops up. I get a lot of requests. Make sure it ain't buried down yonder somewhere, and I'll be glad to take it back, Jim. Oh yeah, Claymore. The open L's are great cutting knives. They're not a prying knife, but as far as a slice, they're very good knives for that. I'm very happy with mine. Randy, the event in Kentucky, what is the percussion pistol class going to be about? I'm going to walk you through a quick history of the guns, talking about the Colts and the Remingtons and all the solid frames. Then I'm going to talk about how all of these are similar things that apply to all of them. And then after that, I'll delve into some little more in-depth stuff about them. It depends on how much time. They just told me I've got a class, and I'm guessing I got an hour. So they haven't filled me in with all the fine details yet. I will dial it in beyond that. I've got this much information. Now I got to know how much time I got to give it. They didn't say, Blackie, you're going to have a 6-hour seminar. Can you do it? Oh, yeah. Let's start with Patterson's and we'll bring it up. But I'll just see what it's going to be. But it's going to be a lot about practical field. I'm not going to bog it down so much in history. I'm going to talk about how these are very practical as a field gun, how you can use it for hunting today, how you use it as a companion, how to keep it running in the field, which is going to be a big part of it. But that's my basic idea. I just got to know how much I got to crop down. That's where I'm at right now. I'm doing 3 classes. One will be on ridge lines, one will be on the percussion revolver, and one will be on packing tips and stuff like that. Plus, I will have a table where I'll be selling my bullet lube, my gun butter, bore butter, and I'll have my haversacks there, so you can come up and ask questions. So that's the game plan as I understand it at this time. Fred Freiberger, good evening. Cool. Claymore, good. Diane, what or Dwayne? Okay, sorry if I mispronounced. Bad glasses. I believe that's Dwayne Morris. Blackie, have you ever cut an 11-degree forcing cone on a cap and ball revolver? What are your thoughts on it? It did help. Um, Earlier guns with their forcing cones were almost blunt, and it tore up the ball when it made the transition. And so I started using the 11-degree forcing cone that was designed for the single action army, and would cut that in, and that really helped. Actually, it didn't distort the ball; it swayed the ball into the rifle rather than cutting the ball in, which caused all kinds of problems. It's not modern rifling is not progressive, which what they wanted was the ball to make the jump, then start turning instead of hitting in a turn and start kind of smearing as it turned under pressure. It have to skid. Well, by making that 11-degree cut, it did improve my accuracy. And for quite a while, I had an 11-degree cutter set just for that, and somebody begged me out of it and had to buy it off of me. But yeah, it for me it did help, and I have recut muzzles before because crown muzzles, because I have found many times that the muzzles were not truly squared off, and they were not true 90-degree, and there'd be some sort of English on it, and that can affect your point of aim. And so the muzzle cutter that I was using was for the 45 caliber Smith & Wesson. In fact, I told him I had a 1917 and I wanted to recut the crown. And the thing they sent me is what I used on my cap and ball. And then later on, I got one for 36. And I told them, I believe I told them I was recutting the crown on a 9mm. And that's the cutter they sent me. So I just talked to Brownells and told them what I was doing. Don't ever tell them you're working on a muzzleloader. A lot of times that confuses them. But I would say it's a 45 caliber, and I got a Smith & Wesson, which I like the crown on the Smith & Wesson. And that's what I did on some of my cap and ball revolvers. And it did improve stuff a little bit. Good evening, Jonathan. Thank you very much for coming in. Dakota, hello, sir. Randy T, good. Come up and say hey, introduce yourself. Dances with Empties, good evening. The one and only Nicole. Dakota the Dancing Bear. Ah, cool. Tim O'Neill loaded a 454 40-grain pellet ball and kiwi to top it off. Wide Earp 12-inch 51 with the 51 stock and hammer screw. Nice. You got you a nice little carbine there. You know, Mark, I think they will. I really do. Not to get too far out in the deep water. Freedom Group, back about 2010, bought up all the available gun companies, basically, and then ran them in the ground. And now they've kind of fell out of it, and now companies like Ruger is bought Marlin, and Marlin had bought somebody else right before that. And so you're going to see some of these guns coming back. You've seen CZ picked up Colt. That's a good company. And so I'm happy that where it's went. Yes, I prefer it to be strictly an American company, of course. But at the same time, if it had to go somewhere, I want it to go to somebody that makes a good product. CZ makes a good product. And so the same thing with Ruger now doing Marlin and stuff like that. I don't know what the price is going to be, but I don't see how they can stay out of it. I mean, sooner or later, especially the prices those things are commanding right now, the Ruger Old Army is going to come back in some form or some version of it, because it was simply taking the Ruger Super Blackhawk and making a few modifications to it to turn it into a percussion revolver. And so it was not a horribly modified gun, the extra milling operations. So, and they still make that model. So it isn't like they don't have those frames anymore. And I really think that eventually that gun will come back. It's gone from being we prefer the classic guns and that gun's okay, to now flip it. Now guys want to hunt, and that Ruger is great gun for hunting. It's out of the box set up for hunting. So I really think it's going to come back. If nothing else, in at least limited runs from time to time. Oh, cool. Will, you got one of the Marlin 44s. I had the Marlin 44 91, 92 and was happy with it. That was back when Marlin, there wasn't none of this other BS stuff going on. It was Marlin. And I had that in the 44 and 94 and a 44 mag and was very happy with it. Wow. Okay, Benton. One was listed as 78. Guns were refreshed. So if this was an original, it could have started out as a 75. And then as the rifling started to wear out, they cut it deeper and it would become a 76 and then a 77, and finally a 78, which guns were made up into the 80 calibers. Some of the early German Jaegers were 80 to 85, a big heavy cannonball going at a short distance against a big elk or something. But that'd be my guess. If it's an original, it may have been a freshed out 75. Ooh, cool. Johnny, yes, sir. In fact, I got some developments for that. Johnny, Blackie, do you have any plans to do any more videos of muzzle loading single shot shotguns? If you could do so, please do the 20 gauge. No one is doing videos on the 20 gauge. I recently acquired a 2-liter Chase 62 caliber, which is a 20 gauge flintlock, and I'll be talking about that over on my Rumble. And I've recently started talking to a gentleman at my local gun club, which has a large gun collection of muzzleloaders and all kinds of guns, way beyond my own collection. And he has very generously offered to let me borrow them and do videos. And he's got a couple of shotguns and wanted me to do shotguns. So yes, we are getting back to it. I know I keep saying I'm getting back to it, but now I really am. In fact, I shot today a video on the Dragoon doing a percussion revolver one, showing about doing a simple modification to the bolt on it. That will post this Saturday. And I'll tell you what, this month, I promise you, this month, I will go back to the single shot Thompson Center and finish up the single shot 12 gauge, and I will do at least one video shooting the single shot 20 gauge, which is the 62 caliber, on it and talk about it. So I will give you 2 shotgun videos this month. I promise you that. I will give you 2 shotgun videos this month. Michael, hello to Wisconsin. James Singer, thank you very much. Kent, what do you think of the new Henry lever guns? I really like the Henry product, very well made. Have you seen their new revolver? I've only seen pictures and reviews. I have not handled one yet. Looks interesting, though. Tim O'Neill. Yeah. Getting off a plane from Toronto to Miami is like getting hit in the face with a wet towel. Amen. I have done that very thing. I have left down here and it was in the low 80s and landed way up north and got out of the plane and it was close to zero. You know, it was like blizzard conditions that we were able to land in. And it was just instant cold. And I've gone the other way. I've been up there doing stuff, been up there a week or two doing a job, and then fly home and step out down here and it's like, yep, there it is. Yes, Rumble. It's easy, but over there on Rumble, I'm allowed to do stuff. I can talk about being sneaky. I can do gun videos and really do hunting videos with it and not worry about they're going to cut half your money out just because you posted a single gun video, even if you don't monetize it on YouTube. And I tried that for a while. They would cut my money in half just because you're publishing anything with gun content. So, but over on Rumble, I can do gun. And my goal right now is to once a week on Saturday publish some sort of gun content over there. Dusty Tucker, awesome. George, good evening. Daryl, how to make flints. That is a skill beyond me. I have done it. I have played with it, but I have no great shakes at it. I had good friends that were good flint knappers. They made arrowheads. They made whatever. Start with glass bottles and practice till you get good before you invest in flint. But I always just ordered mine from like Dixie Gun Works, Track of the Wolf, or would go to Rendezvous and pick them out. And I've got a bag around here somewhere. I mean, probably 60 flints that are never been used that I picked up over the years of off trade blankets or whatever that I could use. But it's a skill. It really is. Split and Knox Archery. What's your favorite buck knife? Buck 110 by far. That is my favorite buck knife. Now, 3-blade Stockman was near and dear to my heart for many years too. But if you say what is the best buck, I'll say a buck 110. Johnny, yes, muzzleloader kits are ridiculously expensive. Muzzleloaders were the cheap guns. I remember when Hawkins were $500 and we thought that was huge, and now they're like $1,800. So yeah. Oh, Randy, yeah, you got a 28 gauge, which is a 58, I think. Yeah, 58 smoothbore. Freedom Off Road, glad to help. Freedom Road Off Grid. Excuse me, I said that too fast. Jeff, kindly, what is your opinion of a Nesmunk style knife for bushcraft, general camp chores, and hunting? Very good knife designed for that. That hump on the back of it does really good for cooking, be able to, spread stuff, slice it, take that hump and flip things in a fry pan for general camp cooking. Being able to use it and cut up vegetables, meat. It does great for draw cuts on big slabs of meat, stuff like that. It's a very effective camp knife. And with skill, it would be a very effective hunting knife for cleaning small game. Nesmunk knew what he was doing. It is not my first choice, but I've made them before. I went and would get a Russell buffalo skinner and then cut the blade and make it into that shape. I'm pretty sure that's what his was originally, or what he was basing it upon. And but when you read Nesmunk, you realize he keeps talking about stuff in tins. That was kind of a new thing at that time. He's talking about small cans. And so he's carrying these cans for food, and that hump on the back of the blade is perfect for sticking down and getting everything out of a can. So, hey, I can see why one of the reasons he wanted it. The one and only Nicole. Nesmuk, not as good as Namora. Possible. It all comes down to use, preference, and etc. Mark Burris. Thinnest Mora. There are some thin ones out there. A Mora is a good cut knife. It ain't a pry bar. Garberg, good field knife. Yes. Dances with empty. Any chances of doing a bit on a pepper box? If this gentleman has a pepper box, I'll do that. Pepper boxes were the de facto multi-shot, so to speak, personal defense gun before the Patterson. That was his chief competitor, was the pepper box. Wasn't meant for any kind of range. It was across the coffee table, 5-6 feet. But they were effective guns for what they were designed for. But the Patterson was much more effective as an offensive weapon. Randy T, I don't know. He may come out for the day, but he's, to my knowledge, he's not an instructor or anything. But he's not that far from it. He's actually about 12 miles into Ohio across the river from Kentucky. He's still in the mountains of Kentucky, but it's actually in Ohio. But you know what I mean? So that wouldn't be that far a trip for him. I don't know if he's planning on it yet. James Bender. Peter, what was the primary way to light a fire in the frontier? What kind of fire starter did they carry to make fire easier? Quite often they carried char cloth, touch cloth, punks, and matches have been around since the early 1800s. It's just what you wanted. And if you had a gun, if you had a flintlock gun, you already had a flint maker. All you had to do was take the priming powder out, take you a little bird quill or whatever, and plug the flash hole so the gun wouldn't go bang. And then you would put a little bit of tinder into the pan, sprinkle a little gunpowder on it, and close it. When you sparked it, it ignited the tinder. And so the guns were quite often used as fire starters. There was a famous account in the mid 1700s of a couple of explorers that had joined forces. They had gone all the way to Detroit and were coming back across into the English territory, and they'd come through Ohio and everything. And the two guys didn't know each other, and they didn't necessarily trust each other, but it was safety in numbers. And I believe there had been like 4 guys initially, but 2 had peeled off at a certain river to go a certain way, and they were like a days away from the thing. And one of the guys went to spark to try to light a fire, and he didn't plug the touch hole. So the gun shot and missed the other guy just by inches. Of course, the guy got a little upset about this, but the guy that did the accidental firing said, "Look, I'm sorry. I thought I plugged it, blah, blah, blah." 2 days later, it happened again. And this time, the guy nearly beat him to death. He was sure he was trying to kill him, And so that was... but guns were used to do it. But usually it was char cloth, flint and steel was by far the most common way of making fire. And then matches, if they were available, or punks. People would split fat wood down here in the South down to little matchsticks so that you could blow a ball of tinder and hold it in and ignite it. So things like that. Dakota, what's your opinion on the Kephart original design? Very good knife. As I showed you in my collection, Dakota, I have a Kephart that was made by Condor, and it's a very good field knife. Right size. Kephart knew what he was doing as far as the size of knife and things like that. It's just a good general purpose field knife. It's good in many jobs. It's a master of many, but not the best choice in a few, but it gets the job done. And for a man that didn't want a big knife, and you got to remember, Kephart's coming up in a time of Bowie knives and stuff. It's fighting knives, where guys carried these big knives, not really for field work, but more as a defense weapon, as see, I'm big and dangerous, stay away from me. That Kephart is really a really practical knife, and I'm great for doing small game. And when you're trying to live off the land, 80% of what you're eating is small game. So something you can clean game with and fish and stuff with easily, yeah, big advantage. Johnny, yes, if you had a flintlock, you always had a way to start a fire. And if the gun was unloaded, you could take fine tinder, uh, cattail down, whatever, and actually make a plug of it and put it in the barrel with a little bit of powder behind it, like 10 or 12 grains. Prime the gun and aim at a dirt banker, like a tinder bundle, and go boom, and it would shoot it out and land in the thing, and it'd be ready to blow into a flame. It'd be a glowing coal. Excuse me, glowing coal. And of course, everybody's familiar with the fire piston, which produces a glowing coal by compression. A gun shooting a wad out could do it. You have to actually be careful when shooting a muzzle loader in dry conditions, because if you don't saturate your patch and you leave your patch too dry, it'll be smoking and you can blow it into flame. You can start a fire. If it lands in the grass and a little bit of breeze, you can start a fire. So it's a fire maker either way. Plus, if you got black powder, hey, you got a way. Michael, Blackie, for people our age, what do you recommend for good boots and warm socks? I prefer wool hunting socks. And as far as the boots, I wear the ones I'm wearing right now, Marine Corps issue desert wraps. I pick them up at that surplus place at $60 or $70 a piece, and they're brand new, never issued. I get them a size too big, and I wear 2 layers of socks at least. I'll put a thin dress sock over my foot, and then I'll put that big heavy wool sock over the top of it. And that's how I keep my feet warm in the winter. I'm not in extreme cold down here. The lowest I can expect in the morning is the teens usually. Usually it's much warmer in the 30s. So I'm not up in true snow country. So if you're up in high country, you may want even better socks than that and better boots than that. B, I hope you do. Hope to get to meet you. Jim Survival, hello there. Brad, well, hello, Brad. Johnny, yes, it is. It's Blackie Thomas on Rumble. And I've got like 8 or 9 videos over there now. Tim O'Neill, cool. Yeah, the CZ does make a very nice shotgun. Andy, good evening to South Georgia. John Moore, hello to Ohio. Oh, JB, 45 long cold at 4440. Dude, I've got 40 years experience with a 4440 combo. I've got a single action army and I got a Henry rifle, one of the U-Birdies that were brought in 79. I have serial number 3-digit in the 300s. The very first run of Henry's ever brought in the U.S. by U-Birdie. I've got one. 4440 is my choice of those two. Now, today I've got a 92 that I've shot recently in a video, a 92 clone in 45 Colt, and I got a 45 long Colt handgun. Be a run for the money which one, but near and dear to my heart, I still prefer that 4440. Johnny, yeah, that's one of the reasons. Saliva to lubricate the patch, to keep it from burning and to keep the bore kind of soft. Dark Meta, hello. Chris, I have shot pre-charged pneumatics before years ago and was very impressed with them. And I know today they do make them powerful enough to hunt deer and stuff. So the technology today is light years about ahead of what I practiced with many, many years ago. But I believe that they can be a very viable gun for that. Santiago, Blackie, what are some of the pros and cons of using the 30 grain pistol pellets on the 51 Navy compared to measuring powder? Convenience, A. If the gun shoots accurately with that load, Life's beautiful. The disadvantage, you can't adjust that load easy. You can't cut it in half or whatever. It crumbles. So you're back to measuring powder. So if your gun likes that load in it, it's right in the ballpark. Many guns will probably shoot reasonable. That would be an advantage. On the other hand, if it's just all over the place and all you're doing is making noise, and it depends on the gun. I've had 2 identical 51 Navies that were actually like 3 serial numbers apart. And this one absolutely loved 25 grains. And this one, you couldn't hit a hula hoop at 20 feet with it. You know, it just, you couldn't get more opposite. And then I've had 2 guns that had nothing in common at all, but the exact same load worked perfectly in both guns. So it depends on the guns. And so using the presage pellets, get them, try it. If it works great, kudos. You are ahead of the game. Makes it far easier to carry. In the field, I usually carry the round ball and the Dixie tubes, so I can easily load it. I just bring it out, squeeze, pop the ball out, pour the powder in, put the ball in, ram it, put the cap on. I'm done. I can load a 6-gun usually in less than 45 seconds to a minute from dead empty. And if I'm individual shots, excuse me, y'all got to excuse me. I had something for lunch. It's just not working right. And make me burp like crazy. If I do a single shot like on a bunny or something, I can be reloaded in 10, 15 seconds and topped up that cylinder again. And then take that empty and stick it in my pocket. So that's the way I go. I played with those powder charges, but not in a while. Fred Freiberg, yeah, I have that too. I have seen people buy because some big name guys got this knife, and so they go buy it. You cannot automatically impart skill, wisdom, or anything by buying something. You know, and I tell people that, and I'm the guy that uses a custom knife, and I'll tell you that in a heartbeat. But at the same time, I'll tell you that it's a good, really, really, really good knife. It's an expensive knife. It's an investment for a WC knife, but it's well worth it. On the other hand of it, there's nothing wrong with the Mora. There's nothing wrong with the Condor. Get the best knife you can afford and the knife you use well. Don't worry about the price. Just make it something durable. Red sorghum, believe it or not, we have a muzzleloading hunting season in Comedy, California. Wow, I didn't even know they had hunting seasons over there. Freedom Off-Road, the cross boots should be pretty good boots. The ones I knew of years ago were. Okay, being a 58 Huntsman was rated up to about 120 grain charge, if I recall correctly. So I would start with it at about 60 grains and then go up or down until I got my most accurate load. But start about 60, and I would personally limit it to 90 or below. When you climb above it, rarely do you get that much. You might get more horsepower, but your groups go to crap. And so start at 60, go up like 5 grains at a time, shoot 3 shots at a paper plate, see where they hit. Go up 5 grains, shoot 3 shots, and see what's the tightest group, and then play around with that one. But somewhere between 60 and 90, usually. Randy T. What I use to make wads for my shotguns, muzzleloaders, is drink box. It's wax cardboard. So I punch them out. And so for like a 20 gauge, I'll put 4 down, put powder down, put 4 of those down, put shot on, and put 2 on top of it. That's all I use for small game hunting. And it shoots just fine. Just, I cut it off of Sprite cartons, you know, any kind of waxed cardboard. I mean, that waxy cardboard, and I take it and I got a punch. I just punch them out, and that's what I use for mine, and it does real good. Only when I climb into the heavier loads do I want the wads and the cups and do all that. Only for heavy loads. For standard purpose, just shooting small game at close range, that's all I use is the cards. Okay, I think I've caught back up now. Y'all were a hailstorm there of comments. Dances with Empties. Yes, you can load shot even into the pepper boxes. And I heard of it uses buckshots. I've heard of it uses nails, for close range and for use like for what I don't time I'd use shot out of it for would be for shooting snakes. And I believe it was Pieta not long ago. It's the action of a 51 Navy, but it's got a long cylinder on it. And that long cylinder in the end of it, it doesn't have a barrel and a wedge. It's just a big cylinder with a screw in the end of it to hold it in place. It's reverse thread, so it's tightening it when it goes around. And that's just a big pepper box. And I've heard of people taking that and loading shot in it for snakes and stuff like that. So yes, they did any of that. That was very common back in the day. How effective it is will depend on the gun and what you're doing. Dark Meta, paying $5,000 for survival consumer gear doesn't make you good at camping. Very true. How I wish I could just like unplug a card and plug it in your head and give you 30 years experience in something. But unfortunately, we can't. Same thing goes for the knife. Just because this guy's fantastic with a knife doesn't mean that knife is going to be fantastic in your hand. Oh, Fred, yeah. WC Knives. I'm in love with him. I ride for that brand, even though he's a close friend of mine. Even if we weren't, I believe in that knife and I believe in that brand. He does a great job. I have JB. I have not used a BPS knife. Sorry. Randy, cool. Hope it works out for you. Let's all play. I've been on the fence about purchasing a Pieta Uberti for some time. Next time a decent sale comes on, I will have one if they're in stock. Look about March, April, because right now they're still at the Christmas prices because they're betting on Christmas and the Christmas money. And then immediately after that, they're thinking income tax money. Okay. Somewhere around March or April, you're going to notice the price on a lot of the cap and ball revolvers in places like Sportsman's Guide and stuff like that. They'll have limited selection, but the price will come down because they're trying to thin their stock out until next Christmas. You might be able to save a little bit of money that way. The 61 Navy is a great gun. Underrated, but I really, really like it. And like I've talked about in the past, with a tapered 51 barrel, because that barrel tapers down the front sights, makes it lower. And so you got only so much adjustment, where the 61 is more on a flat plane, even though it is tapered, but that sight's taller. And so it's easier to get better adjustment in the rear sight and get it to be able to shoot point of aim. Of the two, just lay two on the table, a 51 or a 61, and say which one of these do you want to work on and have it shooting, pointing to aim to go hunting with in 2 days. I'll grab the 61 because it's already closer than the 51 is. Yeah, dark matter. That's the thing. I had somebody say one time, Blackie, I want you to teach me everything you know. I said, you don't have 60 years. This started when I was a small child, me learning and file indexing it and everything. And so it isn't something I can just go, blah. You know, I can't download all of it. And you don't have 60 years for me to teach you everything. Let's all play good. I hope it works out for you. Um, Midway USA, Dixie Gun Works, Track of the Wolf, Sportsman's Guide. All of them sell through, you know, their catalogs and everything. So you may want to just kind of ghost around in there, and but you'll see it. You know, start about late February, start watching. You'll see that the price will suddenly kind of. That's when they're getting rid of old stock and they put in their order for next year. And this ain't gonna sell. Let's get drop it down, and you'll see the price come down. That's a chance to get one at a better price. B, yeah, exactly. One anyone can go out and buy that high dollar gear, but you can do almost just as good with affordable gear. Yes, develop the skill. And in fact, when I did Bushcraft 101 or whatever one of my video series, I talked about this. Don't start out with an expensive knife because it's a learning curve and you're going to make mistakes. And I would rather you screw up a $25 Mora than a $500 custom knife because things going to happen until you develop the skills. And it's far better to learn on a knife that's replaceable if I do screw it up too bad. When I go to sharpen it and I round it up so bad I can't get an edge on it anymore, then you know, you got to start over. I had a GI came in with a custom lockback one time and wanted to buy a knife to replace because this thing got dull. And I'm looking at this knife and I said, what are you going to do with the old one? He said, I'll throw it away. It's dull. I'll give you $20. What I had on me. It was a $400 custom lockback. He didn't know how to sharpen a knife. So, of course, I cleaned it up, edged it up, went to my buddy who's a big knife collector and went, ta-da, and went, you know, unobtainium. Hey, you know. Fred, I like Condors. They're a really good working knife. I've got several. But yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm slow, but I am working on it when I'm not doing videos or planning classes or whatever. I am more busy now than I was before I retired. Will Rowell, what is your favorite 22 rifle? I had a Remington bolt action for many years that was magazine fed. I want to say it was a 742 or something like that. Scoremaster, Remington Scoremaster. Loved that. Carried it for probably 30 years. Eventually let a little one talk me out of it because he shot it so well. And that was he killed his first squirrel with it. So it became his at birthday time. But that's my favorite 22 rifle. James Singer, that's good to know. If you subscribe to Midway USA, you get lower prices on your birthday month for one purchase. That's very good. But 112, I agree with you. Work on your sharpening skills. Correct, Kim. Thank you for pointing that out. I forgot about Log Cabin Shop. Rebecca, Happy New Year. Bob, the Condor bush lower is what I carried before I got my WC knives, and I still got it. It's up there on the knife collection, and I still use it from time to time. It's a good knife. James Singer, thank you very much. Marlin Model 60, great 22. And of course, Ruger 1022. We was poor, and so the first automatic I had was a Marlin Model 60. And I had to save up money to get a 1022. 1022s are really accurate, very nice. But that Marlin Model 60 rode behind the seat of the truck and took care of farm animals that needed to be dispatched, rabbits, coons, squirrels, whatever. It was rock solid little plinker back there. Yeah, Dances with Empties, I agree. Some of those, when we went to Blade Show and I was barking for William Collins, the guy next to us, because it's just rows and rows. It's insane. The guy next to us on a napkin had a 3-blade Stockman about like that laying there. And he sat there and read a book. I only saw like 5 people talk to him in the whole thing. And I knew it was $300 something to get that table. And this guy didn't seem concerned at all. He just sat there reading his book. And I asked him, I said, I figured the first day maybe the knives hadn't showed up, maybe he's the guy doing the thing, but the knives just haven't showed up. No, that was it. And I said, mind if I look at it? And he handed me a pair of gloves to put on. And it was a 3-blade Stockman. And they were $700 and something, and it was a 4-year waiting list. Very nice. I don't want to know. It was for collectors. It really wasn't practical to even think about using that knife because it was ridiculous. But he was making knives for knife collectors, not for people that use knives. Channel, do you have any advice for trekking medium to large game out of the woods or to a vehicle after you've taken it? Bicycles are your friend. Vietcong can carry up to 500 pounds on a bicycle. I have tried drags. I have tried all kinds of ways. And what I kept coming back to was a cheap bicycle that I would carry on the back of in the back of the truck, not to ride. I'd get rid of the seat, and up on top of it, I would put kind of through the frame a pair of 2x4s, and then I'd put a deck on the top of it about that wide, big enough I could put the deer up on it, anchor it down, and be able to stand it up and balance it, and then put my arm around the deer and walk with it and bring it out. And that's how I would get deer out sometimes. That was the vehicle of choice we used to get them out with, was just a cheap bicycle and a few little modifications. Get rid of the pedals, get rid of the chain. It was just a rolling thing, but you could get it into tight places because it's narrow. You could get the big meat up on it, and then as long as you stood up and put your arm around it and held on the handlebar, you had enough leverage to balance it. You could just walk with it, and you could carry a couple hundred pounds relatively easy. And when you had to stop and take a break, I kept the kickstand on it. I'd put the kickstand down and let it lean against me and be able to sit down, rest a minute, catch my breath, take a swig of water, and keep coming out. So I hope that helps you. Rebecca, good. 20 gauge is my favorite shotgun, although I do have 12s, but I grew up on 20s and I can do a lot with a 20. Yeah, Buckeye 80, a 22 Magnum is a very effective gun and for a lot of things. I had an uncle that was his favorite deer rifle was a 22 Magnum, but that was a different story and a different time. Snook, what knife and sidearm did Sir Francis carry? He had a Puma. He had a Puma Hunter belt knife. He had a Buck 110. He had a three-blade Stockman by Buck that I'm aware of. He carried a Kukri, same as mine, same make and model as mine. Sidearm, he preferred a 1911, or he had a 1917 45 ACP revolver that he was pretty fond of. Rifle, he liked the Enfield that came out of Ishapur that was in 308, the Jungle Carbine. He really liked that. And he also liked the 1903 A3 Springfield. We had a lot in common. Dances was empty. I hear you. James Singer, a Model 39A was a Marlin lever action. Very, very good. I lusted for one a lot when I was a young man. Today they're very expensive. And the Henry 22 lever action kind of has supplanted it now as the 22 of choice in a lever gun. But the Marlin Model 39A was one. I got the Chiappa clone of the 39A, and I like mine. It's accurate. Lonnie, I'm looking for a square Esbit stove, but they want $55 for it. Wow. Is it expensive because it's good? No, it's expensive because they're not making them and importing them that much. The Esbits, if you a lot of times, sometimes at Walmart, you go in the springtime, early summer, and go look in the barbecue area, and there'll be this block this big that says barbecue lighters. It's Esbits. It's just a big sheet of Esbits made into cubes that you can snap off that are basically the Esbit cubes. You can snap them off, roll them up in aluminum foil, and have the same thing. And you can take a canteen cup stove and drop the Esbit in it and have the same thing. You know, but you can buy that big block of them Esbits for like $8. And I've got a friend that's got one of the little folding Esbits, and that's what he does. He just goes and gets it and sits there on his kitchen table with a butter knife and pops them apart and then rewraps them and saran wrap or something so they don't evaporate, so to speak. And that's what he carries for his one block. Will keep him for months on that stove. JB, is the beer budget camper insulated yet? No, that is a project for this spring, but the beer budget camper is giving me a little bit of a problem right now. Her low oil pressure light popped up, and I'm working through, is it a bad sending unit or is it actual low pressure? So I'm waiting for a nice day to get out there and work on it where it's not A, raining, or B, blowing ice cold wind under the truck. And once I get old pony back up on her feet, yeah, that's one of the spring things. I've already got the insulation. I'm gonna pull that camper shell out and I'm gonna insulate the back and into the bed back there, and take it to the next step up as a camper. I may even put a 4x4 all the way around to raise the camper top up 4 inches, give me a little bit more headroom. We shall see. Okay, Johnny. H&R and NEF recommended that you do not shoot slugs or ball out of the single shot shotguns with modified chokes. It's because the end of the barrel is a bit too small. Now, having said that, I have a modified. Okay, that's the one I prefer. I do not feed it a steady diet of slug, but I will on occasionally hunt with a slug in it. What's going to happen is when that slug gets in that barrel, the barrel's going to open up and let it out. But if they don't make that statement in writing, you're going to be that guy that shoots 2,000 slugs a year, you know, and the end of the barrel is going to eventually split. The average person in their lifetime is not going to shoot it. Shooting a round ball out of it, same thing. If the ball is slightly too big, it's going to hit and cause pressure to go up and cause then that barrel to flare out. So they want it to remain round ball, shot only, and only shoot slug in or round ball in cylinder bore, because that's a straight two. So that's what they're coming from a legal point of view. Have I shot slug in mine? Absolutely. I've made wax slugs many times for it, and I've shot solid slugs. But I'm not feeding it a steady diet. You know, it's been 3 years since I shot one in it, and then it was like a couple of times a year. The only time I put a slug in that is we're up close and I'm shooting something really big, like big hog, or we're like, and that the last time we were taking out a horse. Horse had gone bad and needed to be put down. And a good friend of mine contacted me, and it had been a pet. And so we love it to death. We cannot afford the vet bill. It's suffering, and I want to put it out. And so, okay. And so I used the slug and put it out of its misery. It never knew I was there. Just turned it off. You know, it was a very old horse anyway. It was just time to go. So it was for mercy. I did it. But she just fine. Just don't shoot thousands of them, is what they're saying. Chris, yeah, doing a bicycle like that, if I get around to it, if I think about it, and find an old bike laying around somewhere I can modify it like that, I'll think about it. Which today, I've been approached in the last couple of days by one of the e-bike people saying, look, we'll let you have an e-bike if you'll do a review of it. And James Bender loves his electric bike. And I thought about, that would actually be really good for a scouting bike. To be real quiet, especially going up and down dirt roads and stuff, checking out areas. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It's got a 30-mile range. We'll see. I'm in discussion with them, but also modifying a plain old bicycle to just put a deck on it like I had back in the 70s. If I find one, I might do it. Yeah, preacher man, we did it because we was poor. And it was a Schwinn Freedom bike. It had that 2-inch wide back tire and the narrow front tire on it. And I took the pedals off, took the chain off, took the seat off, ran the 2x4s from right below the thing, clamped them through the frame all the way to the back. Then I put 2 legs coming off the back wheel yoke on either side, support the back, and put a piece of, I think it was 1x12 up there on top of it, and screwed it all together. And then I had holes where ropes could go through. That way I could lay the thing sideways on right beside the deer, pull the deer up into place. A lot of times I'd go ahead and cut the legs off, the 4 legs, the short parts off, the parts I ain't gonna need, gut it, roll it up in a tarp, and then lay the bicycle down, bring the rope underneath, tie it all back together, get it stood up on the bike, and then hook my arm around it and grab the hold the handlebars. And I had straight handlebar across it just for that. And walk it back out. And it really saved my little butt several times, because I wasn't very big. When I graduated high school, I was like 5'2", 5'3", and 130 something pounds. When you shoot 160, 180 pound deer, that was a fight getting it back out of these thick woods. So you even thought about stuff like, let him wander a little further over before I shoot him, because it's closer to the truck, Yeah, it's a longer shot, but he's closer to the truck. Ken, yeah, 444 Marlin, double the size of a 44 Magnum. Just got the WC Trail Boss, trying to learn to use it. Has an offset chef knife handle. Any thoughts? Really good knife. I suggest you just start cooking with it every night. Use it to whatever you're going to be cooking. If you got to slice up the lettuce, slice up the vegetables, whatever, use that knife. Even if just to grab something, slice open the cheese or whatever, use the knife. It'll grow on you. You're building muscle memory, and it will grow on you. Pretty soon, all of the knives become boring. Yeah, Buckeye shooting a 4.44 Marlin out of a 410 shotgun. There's 30 something calibers that you can physically drop into a 410 that will go bang. Not saying I'm recommending it, but there are 30 something calibers, like 30 will drop in. All the stuff that will physically drop into a single shot shotgun 410 and go bang. It's like one of the ultimate survival guns. There's how many calibers you can find to drop into it. Frank, have you ever heard of someone installing a scope or red dot on a cap and ball? Yes. Those were very popular at one point on Remingtons because you could flatten the top of a Remington. There's enough meat there to do it, and actually drill and tap it to put a scope base on it or something like that. All the way back into the 70s, there were people that were scoping them to hunt with them. Johnny, glad to do it. That's why I'm here. What company was the e-bike? Uh, I don't want to misspeak, but it starts with an M, like Marquette, something like that. We're just talking about it back and forth yet. I haven't agreed to anything yet, but I want to talk about it and we'll see. Dark Meta, it never hurts to ask. Once you grow and you get a bigger channel, they'll come to you, but it never hurts to ask. Now, the time to do it is September, because toward the end of the year is whenever they're doing for Christmas and stuff like that. And they want to use up their advertising budgets. Right now, it's hard because the year is reset. The end of January is the end of the fiscal year. So everybody's budget for advertising for the year is run out. So now they don't want to risk anything because they don't want to run out of money by the time Christmas rolls around. See? So they're kind of frugal. Wait till somewhere around September and start asking. It never hurts to say, look, here I am. I'm doing this. If you're looking for advertising, I like your product. I'll be willing to do a review of it, an honest review. I'm never going to give a just say, yes, I love it. I've never even tried it or anything. I have to actually put time in it and see. Be honest with your public and everything and be straightforward as you can be. You never know. They may very well. Many of these channels that do nothing but gear reviews, that's what they did. They just started asking. People said, yeah, and handed them stuff because they were good at reviewing. They've got the money and they're looking for somebody to review. So remember, they are looking for someone. So you've got an advantage. William B., hello. Dances with Empty. Blackie Thomas, what's your favorite shotgun? I love an H&R single shot. Had one my whole life, one way or the other. No matter what else. If you say pump, what's my favorite shotgun? I love the 870 and I love the Mossberg 500 equally. If you put my feet to the fire and say if it was a gun for World Go to Hell which shotgun, it would be a 500 Mossberg, because you can change out and repair the ejector in it, where you can't in a Remington. You got to send them back to a factory or a gunsmith to fix. But a 500, you open up the action, look in the hole, there's a screw. You can just change that out in the field. So synthetic stock with a few extra parts for future breakage stuck in the butt stock, that would be the gun I'd want for World Go to Poo Poo, as far as a pump shotgun or a shotgun. But I love a single shot H&R. Fred, good evening. Good night. Sleep well. Dane Lamb, do you have experience with an Norinco 1911 A1 clone? Yes. They're very good guns. In fact, when they first brought them out in the early 90s, a lot of the American manufacturers were yelling and screaming because they're afraid of it, because of the price. And then Wilson Combat, who was a big name in those days in custom guns, went to using the Norinco 1911s as the basis of their guns. And that was a big blow to Colt and them, because Norincos were being used to make multi-$1,000 target guns. So yeah, they're actually really good guns, well made. Dark Meta, that's the way, and play around and find what works. Every success story out there is built upon a mountain of failure. Failure simply means first attempt in learning. I didn't even monetize my channel until 2018. 10 years after I started, I was just doing it for fun. Just to help people like you. They would ask a question and I would just do a video to respond. That was the bulk of my channel. I never set out to be as successful as I am. And I am no big shakes. I'm a relatively small channel. Look at the size of Dave and Sean Kelly and Corporal's Corner and all of these guys. Even James Bender. He blew past me, but look around, you'll find your niche and just keep at it. Don't give up. Keep doing it. Hello to North Carolina, Dark Meta. Good place to live. Buckeye, yeah, I have seen the Captain Ball channel before. He does really, really good. Tennessee Smoky, Blackie, any suggestions on an inexpensive rucksack? Looking to supplement a haversack with a little more items for cooking and shelter. Look for one of the German Alpine rucksacks. Okay. Sometimes you can find them used, $30, $40. Really good bags. Now they come in canvas or in Cordura. Either one works fine. I've got 5 of them. And before I designed my own rucksack, that was my number one go-to, and I still got a bunch of them right up there. That's a really good and not necessarily terrible expensive bag, but it's a good bag for field work. Jeff the Stevens is a good gun. I see where Dave Canterbury's done several videos on it, and I think it'd be a very good choice. Now that you can't get a brand new H&R, you got to go with that. But I feel that our gun industry is coming back, because we're already seeing where, like I spoke earlier about, where Freedom Group screwed up everybody. And now they're emerging back out of it, where Ruger is able to buy Marlin and etc. And it's probably going to be 10 years, but you're going to see a lot of these companies come back in some form. I know Henry makes single shots now that are very good quality. So that might be something to look at. but there's so many of them HRs laying out there at pawn shops. Right now is the time to look for them, because the kid that started out with a single shot and got an 870 or 500 for Christmas, he's dumping that single shot at the pawn shops and stuff right now. So if you're looking for a single shot, now's the time to look for them. Oh boy, Will Round Rowell, where did Sir Francis serve when in the military? I could not give you a complete list. He served several tours in Vietnam. He was with the group that went in the Dominican Republic in the early 60s. He was involved in stuff in the Cuban Missile Crisis. He trained the Israeli Marines or whatever equivalent. And then 4 years later, he went and trained Egyptian Marines. And the unit that he trained was so effective against Israel in one of their wars that Israel told him he's not welcome in Israel anymore. And they knew it was because who trained him was him. So Israel, that he was in Germany, Japan. He was a shipboard Marine a lot of times. He was in the Arctic. He was in McGurdo. He was all over the place. He's something else. And I hope to do some more videos real shortly with him. I'm going to see him Saturday, and maybe I can sneak the camera in there and us talk a little bit. We'll see. Here we go. That's it. Hey, do what you got to do to get out there. Tennessee Smoky, glad to do it. That's it, Dark Matter. You can't push uphill against they own the medium. That's the reason I've shifted my gun stuff, which is popular, my cabin ball stuff. I'm doing it now over on Rumble. I'm not going to abandon this because I love my bushcraft, but being able to go over there and be able to talk about 1911s or AKs or ARs. I know as much about a 1911 as I do about cap and ball revolvers. I just chose to do cap and ball revolvers on YouTube to hopefully not gather the ire of them, but it doesn't work anymore. It did for many years, but it doesn't now. And so I'm going over there. But I'm going to keep doing my bushcraft stuff here. But I can go over there and talk about that. And I've been able to branch out and do other guns. And I got to get off my tail and spend a week at the range and get some stocked up before it gets hot. Because during the summer, you can't get out there and shoot accurately with sweat running in your eyes. But with this gentleman that's now offering to let me use some of his collection, we got all kinds of new things to play with, including a lot of air rifles, high-end air rifles and stuff that he was shooting at 60 yards onto a dime. And every shot at 60 yards being on that target, on that dime. Yeah, he got some nice stuff. The 870 Fieldmaster, great gun. Oh, cool. Preacher man, good. Yep. But Ken Aldridge, I'm sorry, Sir Francis. Sir Francis is Grouch. His actual name is Sir Francis McGowan, and he's called Sir because he was actually knighted. Queen of England knighted him for something. I'm not sure what, but he is actually Sir Francis McGowan. He has been knighted, and but our camp name was Grouch, you know, and he was a Force Recon Marine, did all kinds of stuff for the Marine Corps, full career in it, and he's my great mentor. I was young and in my 20s, and he took me under his wing, and he could see potential in me. I was a woodsman, but I was rough around the edges, and I am merely a shadow today of Francis McGowan, Grouch. He has forgotten 10 times more than I'll ever know. And like I said, Saturday I'm going over to spend an afternoon with him and hopefully get to take camera and us talk a little bit if he's in the mood. Sometimes he goes, I don't know if I need to give away all these secrets. You know, kids get out there and learn it on their own. I know. But let's talk about and just see if I can talk him into it. We shall see. He's sort of a quiet, shy man till you get to know him. Well, guys, that's an hour and a half, and I've greatly enjoyed it. But I think I'm gonna bow out just a little bit early tonight. I've got a bunch of groceries that we picked up that I've got to go in and help sort. I promised her that don't worry about the canned goods and stuff. I'll come in and sort them. And I stoked up the fire a little while ago, about an hour and a half ago. I need to go in and check on it too. So, guys and gals, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for spending Thursday nights with me. I greatly appreciate all the comments and questions over here. Thank you very much. Now, next Thursday night, I plan on doing live. I may be a little bit late because I've talked to somebody who's got a bunch of chickens, and I'm going to pick up a bunch of chickens that's been processed, meat, to go into the freezer. So that's going to be next Thursday. And so I'm hoping to be back on time. But if I'm just a little bit late, hang loose. But I am planning on being on next Thursday night. Till next time, guys, y'all be safe. Have a great day. Have a great evening. And have a great weekend. And I'll talk to you later.